I remember the night it all started. Like it was yesterday. Even though it's been years. I was 17. Home alone for the first time ever. My parents had gone on a last-minute trip. To a wedding. Leaving me in the house. They said I knew better than anyone. At first. It was thrilling. Quiet. Empty rooms. The freedom to watch whatever I wanted. Eat whatever I wanted. No one around to judge me. I made popcorn. Turned the TV up loud. And settled into the living room. Like I was in my own private kingdom. But somewhere around 10 o'clock, the thrill started twisting. Into something heavier. Colder. I heard a knock. Soft at first. Almost polite. I froze. Our neighbors were gone too. So there shouldn't have been anyone here. I called out, "Hello?" But no answer. I told myself it was probably the wind. Or maybe a branch tapping the window. I tried to laugh it off. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I locked all the doors and windows anyway. Double-checked every latch. Every bolt. I kept the lights on. Tried to distract myself with a movie. But the quiet kept breaking in. With small noises. A creak in the hallway. The low hum of the fridge. A whispering draft through the vents. And then I heard it again. A shuffle coming from the basement. My house has a deep, unfinished basement. The kind that swallows sound. And echoes just enough to make your stomach drop. I didn't want to go down there. But the curiosity, and maybe the denial, was stronger than my fear. I grabbed a baseball bat from my closet, my hands shaking, and crept toward the basement door. The air felt colder. The closer I got, I swore I could smell something. Like wet concrete, mixed with old dirt. The first step onto the stairs made that old wooden floor groan. Like the house itself was warning me to stop. When I flicked the light on, the basement was empty. Or so I thought. At first, I saw nothing but the usual boxes. The old furniture my parents never threw away. Then I noticed footprints. In the dust. Along the concrete floor. Bare footprints. Not mine. Not from anyone in my family. Heading from the back corner of the basement toward the stairs. My heart started hammering. My hands slick with sweat. I backed up the stairs. Fast enough to almost trip. And that's when I heard the whisper. Clear as day. Don't scream. My mouth went dry. The air seemed to thicken around me. I dropped the bat and bolted upstairs, locking the basement door behind me. I called my neighbor across the street, my voice shaking so badly I could barely get the words out. She said she'd check on the house, but the way she hesitated when I mentioned the basement made my stomach twist. Then I heard something that froze me completely. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Moving across the living room floor. While I was on the phone, I could hear them pause. Near the stairs. I was frozen. Listening to my own pulse. Hammering in my ears. Whoever it was didn't rush. They were methodical. I didn't dare hang up. I whispered to the neighbor what was happening. She told me to stay quiet. Stay hidden. That help was on the way. I hid in the closet of my bedroom, curling up behind the clothes. trying not to breathe too loudly. The footsteps came closer. Then a door opened somewhere else. Maybe the kitchen, followed by a low scraping sound, like someone dragging a hand along the counter. I prayed I was invisible, that they wouldn't see me. Minutes stretched into hours. I must have passed out, because when I woke, the house was silent. My phone showed a missed call from the neighbor and a voicemail. She said the police were at my house. When I ran out, still shaking uncontrollably, there were 3 officers and a single detective. In the driveway, they had found evidence that someone had been living in the crawl spaces of my house for who knows how long. Someone who had a habit of watching the family, knowing the schedules, knowing when it would be safe to slip into rooms while everyone was away. They found a small mattress shoved behind the furnace in the basement, rotting food, and a stash of stolen things from the neighbors' houses. I remember looking at the detective, trying to understand how anyone could live in my home, in the dark, listening to me, walking past me, as if I didn't exist. They told me the man had fled just moments before they arrived. He had been in the house that entire night. I never forgot the way my house felt after that. Every shadow seemed sharper, every creak louder. I didn't sleep in my room for months. I couldn't eat in the kitchen without thinking someone could be behind me. And the thing that haunts me most is the memory of his voice in the basement, calm, knowing, telling me not to scream. I can still hear it if I close my eyes too tightly. Still feel the chill of the air when he walked past me. Footsteps deliberate, calculated. Someone who had chosen me, my home, and waited. They never caught him. I moved out 6 months later, and I can't drive past that neighborhood without my stomach tightening. People tell me it was just a man hiding, a criminal, nothing more. But the way he knew the house, the way he moved, the way he waited, I don't know. It wasn't just a crime. It was something darker, something that lingered long after he was gone. I remember the first night it happened, like it's tattooed into my brain. I was 17, and my parents had gone out for the weekend to visit my aunt in Ohio. I had the house to myself for the first time in my life. And at first, it felt like a dream. I could play my music as loud as I wanted, eat whatever I wanted, and no one would yell at me for leaving dirty dishes in the sink. But that night, everything changed, and it wasn't the freedom I remembered. It was fear. It started around 9 p.m. I was sprawled on the living room floor, half watching a movie, half texting my friends, when I heard the first sound, a faint tapping against the front window. I froze, thinking maybe it was the wind or a branch. But then it came again, deliberate, slow. I put down my phone and tiptoed to the window, pressing my forehead against the glass. The yard was empty. Nothing but shadows, stretching from the streetlight. My heart eased a little, but not fully. Something about that quiet stillness felt wrong. I went back to the couch, trying to ignore it. But then I heard it again, this time from the back door. A soft scratching, like someone trying to test if it would give. I didn't want to believe it, so I convinced myself it was a raccoon, or maybe a stray cat. I told myself to relax, that I was safe, that I was alone. But I didn't feel safe. Not really. Around 11, I heard the sound of the doorbell. One ring, and then silence. I didn't answer. I just stared at the door, heart hammering, listening. Then the footsteps started. Slow, deliberate, pacing back and forth along the porch. I tried calling my parents, but the line was dead. My phone? Dead too. The electricity flickered once, and then went out, plunging the house into darkness. That's when I realized I wasn't imagining it. Someone was out there, and they weren't just curious. They were testing me, sizing me up. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife I could find, my hands shaking so hard it was nearly impossible to hold. I thought about calling 911, but the phone lines were down, and the landline in the kitchen was old. The cord tangled. My chest was tight, my breath short, and I could hear every creak of the house, as though it were amplified. Every floorboard groan sounded like a footstep coming closer. Then came the sound of breaking glass. Slow, deliberate. From the living room window, my stomach dropped, and I ran toward it, the knife raised, every nerve screaming. I saw the curtains twitch, a shadow moving in the dim moonlight. I yelled, "Stay out!" But my voice shook, and it was barely more than a whisper. There was a pause, and then a voice. Low, calm, chilling. "I know you're in there." I froze. Couldn't move. Couldn't think. My mind went blank, except for the pounding of my own heartbeat. I could hear him moving inside the house. He'd somehow gotten in. Every door I thought I had locked. Every window I thought I had secured. It didn't matter. He was inside. My bedroom door was the next target. I ran, slammed it, locked it with a small deadbolt, and backed into the corner. Knife in front of me. Minutes passed like hours. I didn't dare breathe too loud. I could hear him moving outside my door, testing it, breathing, his footsteps slow and heavy. Then he spoke again, and this time it was closer, whispering my name. "I can hear you breathing, kid. Come out." I don't know where the courage came from, but I grabbed my phone from under the pillow. It had 1% battery left. Barely enough for a call. I dialed 911, voice trembling so badly they barely understood me. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line, to stay quiet, to hide. And that's when I heard him break the handle on my door. I ran. I ran through the house, like I had never run before. Living room, dining room, kitchen, trying every door. Locked, locked, locked. And then, finally, I remembered the garage. The back door to the garage always stuck. I yanked it open and ran into the alley behind my house. I didn't stop. I could hear him shouting, cursing, the sound of the door slamming behind me. As he realized I had escaped, I ran until my lungs burned, until I reached the street, where a neighbor was walking her dog. She saw me, screaming, crying, shaking. She called the cops immediately. They found him inside the house. A few minutes later, going through drawers, nothing particularly valuable. Nothing even stolen yet. Just someone who wanted to terrify. A kid home alone. And maybe worse. He had a criminal record. Burglary. Assault. Multiple arrests. But somehow, he had slipped through the system. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I sat in the neighbor's living room, with a blanket around me, clutching a coffee cup, staring at the streetlights, imagining him still out there, somewhere, waiting. My parents came home the next day, shocked, comforting, but nothing they said could erase that fear. Every creak in the house still makes my stomach drop. Every sound at night. I checked the locks 3 times. Maybe 4. I learned the hard way. That home isn't always safe. That being alone can turn ordinary walls into traps, and ordinary windows into eyes watching you. Years later, I still remember the shape of the shadow against my curtains, the sound of his breathing outside my bedroom, the way my own heart sounded too loud in the silence. I don't know what he wanted, or why he came that night, but I know one thing. I will never, ever feel safe in a house alone again. I always thought being home alone was kind of liberating. You know, like a rare gift. The house all to yourself. No one telling you what to do. No one watching. That Friday evening, my parents had gone out to a dinner party downtown, leaving me with a promise that they'd be back by 10. I was 16, and it felt like the first taste of real freedom. I remember sinking into the couch with a bag of chips and the TV on, the dim glow of the living room lamp making the shadows long and soft against the walls. Outside, the wind rattled the branches, but I didn't care. I was home alone, and it felt like I owned the world. I had just started a new series on TV when I heard it, a soft creak from upstairs. I froze, heart hammering. At first, I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses do that, right? But the creak came again, slower this time, deliberate. I muted the TV and listened. Footsteps. Someone was moving above me. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone, dialing my dad's number, but it went straight to voicemail. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. I dialed 911, whispering into the line, trying to sound calm, even though my voice cracked. I told the operator my parents were out. I was alone, and someone was in the house. She told me to stay put and stay quiet, and that officers were on the way. I tiptoed to the kitchen, thinking maybe I could barricade myself there, maybe hide in the pantry. I pressed my back against the wall and listened. Every creak of the floorboards, echoing like a gunshot. The footsteps came closer, descending the staircase. Slow, methodical. I could hear breathing now, deep and uneven, and my mind screamed at me to run, to do anything, but I was paralyzed. I grabbed a butcher knife from the counter and held it out in front of me, shaking so hard I thought I might drop it. Then I saw him. He wasn't wearing a mask, just a hoodie, but his eyes, they were calm, almost bored, like he was expecting me. "I know someone's home," he said softly. That voice, it wasn't shouting. It wasn't angry. It was terrifyingly calm. My throat closed up. I couldn't move. He took a step closer, and my hands trembled so badly. The knife clattered to the floor. I bent down to pick it up, and he lunged. I screamed, more out of shock than fear, and he froze for a second, like he hadn't expected me to make a sound. I ran. I don't even know how I got to the back door so fast. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers slick with sweat, and it wouldn't turn. I could hear him behind me now, and he was laughing softly, almost mockingly. I remember thinking that this was it. This was how it ended. And a cold wave of panic washed over me. I slammed my shoulder against the door, and it finally gave way. I bolted into the yard, barefoot, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it over the wind. I ran down the street, calling out for help, hoping someone, anyone, would hear me. A neighbor's porch light flicked on, and I ran toward it, gasping for air, sobbing, terrified he would follow. I pounded on the door, screaming for help, and they opened it, pulling me inside. I could see the police cars arriving down the street, lights flashing. They searched the house, while I sat wrapped in a blanket, shaking, trying to calm my racing thoughts. They caught him. Eventually, he was hiding in the basement, waiting. They said, like he had planned it all. A serial burglar. They told me later. Someone with a history of breaking into homes and waiting for people to be alone. I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow seemed to move. My parents came home hours later, faces pale when they saw me, and I couldn't stop shaking. They tried to hug me, to comfort me, but the fear didn't leave. Even now, years later, I can't be home alone without checking every lock, every window, every corner. I can still hear his voice, calm and soft. I know someone's home, echoing in my head. I know it's over, that I'm safe, but the memory never leaves. You think being alone is freedom, but sometimes it's just a perfect opportunity for something terrifying to find you.